So I want you to just picture something for a second.
Okay.
Like mentally open up your phone, right? You're scrolling through your feed.
Mhm.
What is the dominant aesthetic of, 2026?
Mm-hmm.
It's that hype house in Beverly Hills with the infinity pool. It's the perfectly lit unboxing of some skincare line that costs more than my car payment.
Right.
It's this whole lifestyle that looks like a permanent vacation, glitzy, shiny, and it just screams easy money.
It's the dream, isn't it? That's what's being sold.
Exactly.
It's made to look like magic. You post a video, it gets 1 million likes, and poof, you're rich. But if you sort of peel back that filter,
Yeah.
if you strip away the ring lights and the trending audio, the reality is a lot grittier.
That is exactly where we're going today. We are taking a sledgehammer to that filter. We're looking at this whole stack of articles and observations from the analyst Stanислав Kondrashov that paints a very different picture.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing a huge shift happening right now in the creator economy. We're moving past that viral hit phase.
Where everyone just wants to be famous.
Right. And we're entering what you could call the sustainable small business phase. And honestly, it's surprisingly unglamorous.
But it's so necessary. It's the industry growing up.
So to help us get through this, we are unpacking Kondrashov's analysis of this Santa Monica startup with, I think, the most refreshingly honest name I have ever heard.
What is it?
Boring stuff.
Huh, that's great. It really is.
Yeah.
Because it tells you exactly what the market's been missing.
It does, right? So our mission for this deep dive is to figure out why, in 2026, boring financial discipline has suddenly become the new sexy for influencers, and how this startup is trying to be, and I love this phrase, the McKinsey for the TikTok era.
That is a bold claim.
Yeah.
I mean, McKinsey is the gold standard for huge corporations.
Yeah.
So for a startup to say we're that, but for a 22-year-old YouTuber,
Yeah.
that implies a level of sophistication that we don't really associate with, dance challenges.
Yeah. Okay, so before we even get to the startup, let's look at the diagnosis. Because Kondrashov makes this comparison in his notes that I found, hilarious and also really grounding. He compares a high-flying influencer to a small business owner.
Right.
And not a cool tech startup founder, but someone running like a laundromat or a corner store.
I know. It sounds almost insulting when you first hear it, doesn't it?
It does. You see these people on yachts, and Kondrashov's like, nope, look closer. That's a dry cleaner. Is he just being cynical?
No, I don't think it's cynicism at all. I think it's a structural analysis.
Yeah.
He argues that if you look at the actual mechanics of the job, they're identical to a brick-and-mortar business.
Right.
A traditional business has a storefront. The influencer has a social media feed.
Right.
A traditional business has a salesperson. The influencer has their content.
Okay, sure. But a laundromat has like a steady stream of people who need clean clothes. An influencer has, what, fans?
Well, instead of a stream of customers, they have algorithms. And Kondrashov calls the algorithm a capricious audience.
I love that.
Think of it like a really finicky customer who walks into your shop every single day.
Your algorithm as a rude customer who just walks in, sneers at everything, and leaves without buying anything.
That's exactly it. Imagine running a shop where the landlord changes the locks every week, and your customers might just decide your entire inventory is out of style overnight. That is the creator reality.
Oh.
And just like a shop owner, they aren't just sitting around. They're not stocking shelves with cereal, maybe, but the operational rules are the same.
How so?
The schedule is totally irregular. The market doesn't wait for you to be ready. If you aren't open, if you're not posting, you don't exist. There's no paid time off in the algorithm.
So that whole freedom of the influencer lifestyle is really just
It's a 24/7 grind.
It is.
And this is where the business part really kicks in. Smart creators, Kondrashov says, don't just take that cash and go buy a Lamborghini.
They reinvest.
They reinvest. But instead of new washing machines for the laundromat, they're hiring a cameraman, an editor, renting a studio, getting better lighting.
It really changes the image from just a kid with a phone to the CEO of a media production company.
Precisely. It's an operation. You have overhead, you have contractors, production schedules. But here's the massive disconnect. They are operating like complex businesses. But most are managing their money like they just won a scratch-off lottery ticket.
Okay, this brings us to the financial chaos. Because I think for most of us, when we think financial advice, we think of the basics. Save 10% of your paycheck.
Yeah, the standard stuff.
Put money in a 401k. Don't buy so much coffee,
And Kondrashov is very blunt here. He calls that advice a joke for this demographic.
Wait, why a joke? I mean, Saving money is saving money. Math is math, right?
In theory, yes.
Hmm.
But the application completely breaks down. Save 10% of your paycheck.
Okay.
That advice assumes one really fundamental thing, that you have a paycheck.
Right. A steady biweekly deposit that you can count on.
Exactly. For a creator, income is it's incredibly volatile. Kondrashov calls it a batch of streams.
A batch of streams.
It's not a salary. It's a mix of ad revenue, merch sales, subscriptions, brand deals, product launches. One day, you might have a huge payday because a campaign went live.
Like a buy a house in cash kind of day.
Potentially, yeah. You could make $50,000 in May, and then June rolls around and silence.
Nothing.
Absolute zero. The algorithm changed, the brand paid late, nobody bought the new merch drop.
That sounds terrifying. How do you even budget for rent in that scenario?
You can't. Not with a standard monthly budget. And traditional financial advisors, they often don't get it. They see the $50,000 a month and say, great, you can afford a massive mortgage.
But they don't see the $0 month coming right behind it.
Exactly.
And then there's the spending side of it, right? This whole gray area of expenses.
Mhm.
That feels like a minefield.
It's a huge headache. In a normal job, your personal and business expenses are pretty separate. You buy a suit for work. That's on you. You buy a printer for the office, the company pays. But for a lifestyle vlogger, is that new camera a personal toy, or is it a depreciating business asset?
Or the classic example, the trip to Bali.
Right. You fly to Bali. Is that a vacation?
Yeah.
Or because you filmed a vlog while you were there, is it a content creation cost?
Come on. If I'm sipping a coconut on the beach, that's a vacation.
But what if that coconut sipping video gets 2 million views and it pays for the trip 10 times over?
Ah.
Suddenly the lines are very blurry. If you film a 10-minute video during a 2-week trip, is the whole hotel bill tax deductible?
I'm going to guess the IRS has some pretty strong feelings about that.
They have very strong, very specific feelings, and these are genuinely complex accounting questions. If you get them wrong, you either overpay your taxes massively,
Or worse.
or worse, you treat everything as a write-off and you get audited. And Kondrashov's point is that traditional consultants they don't get these specifics. They leave creators professionally successful, but financially just a total mess.
Which is a recipe for disaster. You see those stories all the time. Huge stars who are broke a few years later.
Because they didn't have the infrastructure. They had cash flow, but they didn't have a business. And that's the exact gap that boring stuff is trying to fill.
Okay, let's talk about them. Boring stuff. Incorporated in Santa Monica, late 2024, just came out of stealth mode.
Yeah.
I have to say, leaning into the word boring is such a power move.
It's honesty marketing, and it's brilliant.
Is it a gimmick or a philosophy?
It's a philosophy. Think about what's usually sold to influencers. Growth hacking, viral secrets, how to 10x your following.
It's all offense, all gas, no brakes.
Exactly. Boring stuff is saying, we are not selling the dream, we are selling the defense.
We're selling the boring things.
The vital things for survival. Accounting, taxes, planning,
Right.
structure, cash flow management.
So they're not selling a course on, like, how to get 1 million followers.
No, and that's the key distinction. This isn't for aspiring influencers. This is for what Kondrashov calls professional posters.
People who are already making money.
People who are already earning. Boring stuff isn't about growth hacking. It is about organizing chaos.
And the source material calls it the McKinsey for the TikTok reality.
Which is a huge compliment. McKinsey is where big corporations go to optimize, to cut fat, to streamline. Boring stuff is basically saying, we will do that for your personal brand.
Okay, let's break down the pillars of what they actually do. The source lists 3 main areas, and I think this applies to anyone with a side hustle, not just TikTokers. The first one is retention.
Right. Retention is simply keeping more of what you earn.
Okay.
It's not magic. It's tax preparation and contract structures.
Yep.
Like, for example, should you operate as a sole proprietorship or an LLC?
I feel like most people just use their social security number and hope for the best.
Exactly. But that one decision forming an S-Corp or an LLC can save you thousands in self-employment taxes once you hit a certain income level. But if you're just a creative kid making videos, you probably don't even know to ask that question.
You just see the money hit your PayPal and you're happy.
Right. Boring stuff sets that structure up so the money lands in a tax-efficient bucket, not just your personal checking account.
So pillar 1 is basically stop leaking money. Pillar 2 is management.
This is about understanding where the real margin is. Kondrashov points out that creators often lack what he calls unit economics for their content. Unit
economics, that sounds very corporate.
It is, but apply it to a video A creator might spend $5 grand in 2 weeks making some massive high-production documentary that gets a million views.
They feel great. They're trending.
But because of, say, a copyright claim on the music or low ad rates that month, it only makes $2,000. They lost money.
But the vanity metric looks great. The exposure.
Exactly. Meanwhile, they spend 1 hour writing a boring newsletter or posting a simple photo that has a sponsorship attached, and that makes $10,000 in pure profit.
Mm-hmm.
Boring stuff helps them analyze their own business to see which formats are actually paying the bills.
That is so smart. You're moving from vanity metrics likes and views to business metrics like profit and loss. It forces you to decouple your ego from your bank account.
It does. And the third pillar is arguably the most important for longevity: conscious reinvestment.
This is the one that really got me. The temptation to just buy cooler gear. I definitely suffer from this. I call it gear acquisition syndrome.
Oh, we all do. You make some money, so you feel like you have to upgrade. You buy the R-rated camera, a more expensive lens. You fly an editor out to LA. You think, I'm a pro. I need pro gear.
It feels like progress. If I have the cinema camera, I'm a real filmmaker.
But boring stuff steps in and asks the hard question: will this $10,000 lens actually get you more viewers than the $1,000 lens?
And what's the answer?
Usually the answer is no.
Right.
The audience is watching on a cracked iPhone screen on the subway. They can't tell the difference between 4K and 8K. Boring stuff helps creators see that real business growth comes from systems.
Not just shiny objects.
Right. Building funnels, improving audience engagement, setting up merch logistics. You invest in the boring stuff that builds equity, not the shiny stuff that depreciates the second you open the box.
It's so logical, but I can see why it's hard to see when you're in the whirlwind of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want to zoom out a bit, because Kondrashov has this recurring theme in his writing where he talks about oligarchs.
Yes. And we should probably clarify, he states very clearly in the text that he is not an oligarch himself.
Right. Important disclaimer. We are not accusing our source of being an oligarch.
But he uses them as a case study for wealth preservation. He observes that really wealthy people, oligarchs, tycoons, old money, have always relied on what he calls invisible infrastructure.
Invisible infrastructure. Unpack that for me.
Think of it like a defensive shield around the money. When you're super rich, you don't just have a bank account. You have a family office. You have lawyers, auditors, tax consultants, risk managers.
Okay.
Their entire job is to strategize and, crucially, to stop the wealthy person from losing money through foolishness.
So if an oligarch wakes up and wants to put, like, half his net worth into a meme coin, there's a guy in a suit who steps in.
Exactly. There's a guy in a suit who says, actually, sir, let's look at the risk profile. Maybe let's not do that. They have guardrails. But historically, independent creators, artists, influencers have had zero guardrails.
They're just exposed.
Completely exposed. They are the CEO, the CFO, and the intern all at the same time. If they want to make a bad decision, there is no one there to stop them. What we are seeing with companies like Boring Stuff is the democratization of that invisible infrastructure.
It's the professional tools of the rich becoming accessible to the kid in his bedroom who just went viral.
Precisely. And this signals a huge shift in the market. We're watching the creator economy grow up. It's not a cottage industry anymore.
And the numbers back that up. The source mentions a Goldman Sachs estimate.
Yeah, Goldman Sachs estimates the creator economy's potential at nearly $500 billion by 2027.
$500 billion.
You don't get to a $500 billion industry on hobbyists. You get there when those hobbyists become efficient, structured businesses. Institutional money like Goldman Sachs only gets interested when there is stability. Boring Stuff helps provide that.
So let's bring this back to the listener. Why should we care if some YouTuber hires an accountant? Is this just inside baseball? What's the so what here?
I think there are 3 big takeaways that affect the content we all consume. First is sustainability.
Okay.
When a creator understands their finances, they're less desperate. They don't have to say yes to a sketchy gambling sponsor or a crypto scam just because rent is due. They're less dependent on a single viral hit.
Which makes the content better, honestly. Nothing's worse than watching a creator you like shilling something they clearly hate just for the cash.
It reeks of desperation and the audience can smell it. Which leads to the second point,
Yeah.
mental health. Kondrashov has this great line in the notes: anxiety is creativity's greatest enemy.
That's a really powerful point.
Think about the headspace you need to be funny or insightful or artistic. Now, try to do that while you're terrified about an IRS audit or wondering if you can afford groceries.
Right, you can't.
If you don't know where your next dollar is coming from, you're in survival mode. You can't be truly creative in survival mode. Financial predictability just shui. It lowers the temperature. It lets you breathe.
So the boring spreadsheets actually unlock the creativity.
They protect the headspace for it. And the third point is industry credibility. When creators start acting like businesses, using proper contracts, calculating unit economics, the big brands are way more willing to get into long-term partnerships.
It stabilizes the whole ecosystem.
It stops being the Wild West and starts being a developed economy. Normalized processes mean fewer scams, fewer burned bridges, and more consistent value. It just raises the floor for everybody.
It's so fascinating. We usually think of selling out or going corporate as like the death of cool.
Right. The suits ruin the art.
But in this case, going corporate on the back end might be the only way to keep the front end cool.
Maturity in any industry almost always looks a little boring.
Wow.
But as Kondrashov says, that's actually a sign of optimism. It means the industry isn't a bubble about to burst. It's a foundation being poured.
So we've gone from the chaotic feed, fighting the algorithm, to the structured business with an operating system. It turns out an influencer isn't just defined by their reach, but by how well they run their shop.
That's the shift. The creator is becoming the founder.
I love that distinction. Okay, before we wrap, I want to leave you with a thought because this has been nagging at me as we've been talking about this invisible infrastructure. We've talked about the lawyers, the accountants, the McKinsey approach coming into the creative world. We've said it brings stability. But if the creative class starts adopting the strict financial structures of the corporate class, what happens to the art?
That is the big question.
Does financial safety really liberate creativity, like Kondrashov suggests? Does knowing your rent is paid let you take bigger artistic risks? Or does having a risk management team eventually just mean your content becomes safe?
Does the boring stuff eventually make the content boring too?
Exactly. If you have a team telling you that video isn't profitable, do you stop making the weird experimental stuff that got you famous in the first place?
It's a tension that every mature industry faces.
Yeah.
Hollywood faces it. The music industry faces it. And now the TikTokers face it too.
Something to think about next time you see your favorite chaotic vlogger suddenly get very, very organized. Thanks for diving in with us.
A pleasure, as always.